Hey, beautiful souls. Gorgeous, gorgeous girls give context. Context, placing something in where the story is going to make sense. So just earlier today, I dropped a piece of an abundance consciousness ceremony that I did with Nicole Rose and Nina Infinity in the playground just the other day. I think it might have been Wednesday. It was a freaking epic ceremony. It was beautiful. We took out this piece of it that was basically the introduction, that was me just honestly channeling some information and energy, but also weaving in some belief repatterning and shifts in perspective and mindset. And then we went on to create these beautiful abundance altars and dance in abundance. And I wanted to just give a little bit more context to that little piece that we had pulled out of the ceremony that I posted here on Facebook and in my YouTube channel. Basically, it was so good that I was moved to tears. And it was so just rich that we were like, we need to share this instead of keeping it behind the closed doors of our membership. So we shared that little clip. It's about 9 minutes long. And I wanted to just share a little bit more about what we mean when we're talking about abundance consciousness. It's not necessarily about money, prosperity, wealth, that kind of thing, although that can be part of it. And I'm sure I'll be talking a lot more about abundance and prosperity and money and all of those things and how they're interwoven over the next while. In fact, I know I am, because there's a masterclass I have coming up called Elemental Prosperity that I am hosting with Gaia, who I work with, the consciousness of the planet. She's got lots to share about that. But when we're talking abundance consciousness, it's about the mindset, it's about the energy, it's about the awareness and the perspective and the paradigm, as opposed to how much money we have in the bank or how, many physical possessions we have. It is a paradigm. And it kind of is on this spectrum. If you can imagine, we have abundance consciousness at one end of it, and then we've got scarcity consciousness at the other. And it's this shift we're going through right now to slide out of where we have been and towards where we are going. So we're at this precarious time where some people are really bringing through abundance consciousness and they're anchoring it in. More and more people every day are doing this work. The interest in manifestation and all of that stuff has a lot to do with this paradigm shift into abundance consciousness. But not everybody is even close to being there yet. And when we're talking about that, we have to understand that the context and the paradigm on Earth is still, and has been for a long time, scarcity, lack, not enoughness, where people are playing out the survival paradigm, which is just, we are just trying to eke out a living and literally continue our existence. And there was this zero-sum game that was being played on Earth and still is, but that's shifting. It's becoming something else. It's being alchemized right now. But that what zero-sum game is, if one person has something, it's taking away from another person, right? There is this limited paradigm of there is not enough. And on the opposite end of that, where we go into that abundance consciousness, we are tapping into the infinite, right? The flow of the all that is. And I love playing in that field, because when I do, I feel tapped in to the quantum field, to source, to the infinite, all there is. And honestly, to me, I cannot separate that sensation from the feeling of love. Like it has this whole package of information that includes infinite love and like unbounded freedom and creation. And in that also there is destruction, right? There is the capacity to create and then to have the creations uncreate, to be destroyed in just as much ease. But there's always this flow of energy, and the energy is like moving. I think that's the really interesting thing. And so many times we think about like wealth, prosperity, money as something that can be like maybe static. It's this idea of just a thing, but abundance is a flow of energy. And so as we're moving out and working with new paradigms of the infinite and abundance and energy, we are shifting the way our body is processing information. It's basically going from something that is limited and is like there's a ceiling and there's only this much that we can connect to, where truly there's also an energetic separation of people and the mindset from the all that is, right? And so moving from scarcity, moving out of lack and limitation is actually a completely spiritual, energetic endeavor. It's a process that basically involves dissolving, removing, alchemizing, shifting, transforming that boundary between self and everything else, right? To come to this understanding that we're not actually separate from the energies of creation. So just breathe that in for a sec. When we are hanging out in scarcity and lack, there is separation from us and the all that is. And like I said, that's where humanity has been playing for a very long time, except for like mystics and masters and people that were able to tap in. It's not that people haven't tapped in. I'm talking about the collective as a whole has felt limited, has felt separate from one another and from nature and from the divine and from the infinite. And that is what brings the idea of scarcity in. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have had these experiences because we, in the highest soul levels, wanted to experience them because they're a portion of experiencing the all that is. And the contrast brings us a lot of clarity. But what has come through from myself and so many other people that can channel this information and really tap into that is that we're done playing with that now. As a collective, we have decided, okay, we have explored these games of separation and scarcity enough that we're ready to move on to something different. And so those barriers between us and the all that is are starting to dissolve, and more people understand that and can feel it on a soul level and feel like they are here to be a part of that shift. And let me know in the comments if you feel like you are here to be part of that shift in paradigms, in energetics, to move out of the energy of lack and scarcity and survival and separation and into the paradigm of abundance consciousness, of being able to tap into the infinite, but also understand the connections between me and you and all that is. I would love to connect if you are somebody that feels like, yes, I feel like that's my role. That's something that I am here to do and to be an example of, right? We're doing a lot of healing work, body, mind, and soul for ourselves and for our family lines, for our ancestry, because it is a real thing that we have experienced separation and lack, right? The separation between everything is an illusion, but people have really traumatically experienced so much scarcity and so much survival on this planet and still are right now. I'm not saying none of that has happened. My family, if you go back, potato famine on my mom's side, there was also, pioneer energy of like some scarcity on my family's side. I'm like my grandparents were first generation Canadians on my dad's side. So there was a lot of survival. There was a lot of scarcity in those experiences. I'll honor and recognize my privilege in having never experienced desperation for survival in this particular lifetime. I'm super grateful for that. I know so many other people who have, and I want to honor that journey in saying I'm really glad that I happened to be born into this family where I didn't have to move through quite as much in terms of undoing the scarcity separation paradigm. And I'm still pulling through programs and moving through them and alchemizing them. And for me, it wasn't so much about, let's say, money, for example, but more about other things like support, like time, like connection, right? The scarcity of those things. They can be related to anything, material objects, money, whatever. The paradigm of there's only just so much, right? So we get to weave the old narratives into something new. We get to alchemize them as we heal and as we move through those illusions of the separation, right? I work a lot with Gaia, the consciousness of the planet, in the programs that I do and in my one-on-one stuff with clients, as well as just me hanging out with her. And she has a lot to say about this, right? And she wanted me to share with you, and we'll be sharing more in some programs that are coming through, is that the service to self paradigm that has been part of our experience so heavily on Earth recently, and that separation feeling is what has created the situation of scarcity in terms of physical resources on this planet, right? There is enough for everyone to have their needs met in an overflowing abundance way on Earth when people understand at the soul level that we have a connection, that there is a unified field connecting us, and that we all affect each other, right? The ecosystems on the planet play with that, and it's not all just like overflowing abundance, Garden of Eden, but there's the infinite flow that I was talking about at the beginning, right? Where there is like birth and death. And if you haven't seen the was it the Secret Life of Mushrooms, or like the Secrets of Fungus or something on Netflix? Such a beautiful, like physicalized, tangible, visual example of that process, right? And these unseen, often networks of mushrooms that are part of that process of taking the creation energy after it has moved through death into the rebirth cycle, where it then, like breaks everything down into its components so it can be created again, right? This is part of the infinite flow of abundance in the closed ecosystem on this planet, and we're part of that too, right? It's ebbs, it's flows, it's shifting and changing, but it's tapping into the infinite flow as opposed to the very linear, limited flow of separation. Again, where humans have gone into this idea that we're separate, from the earth, from all of our inhabitants, that we can just have dominion over the earth and its resources and all of its inhabitants, as opposed to working with, right? And because of our role and our intelligence and what we're here to do, we can be stewards of the resources in a completely different way than what we're doing right now. And when we start to understand that it's this ebb, flow, give and take, but there is enough for everybody energy, that we are working together, whether we understand that we are or not. We can work together or we can work against each other, but there's going to be this interaction. That's when the shifts and changes will happen on the physical, and it's already happening. It's really, really fun. There are so many people now who are either getting peeks at this abundance consciousness and this realization that we're not separate and that they too can tap into the infinite flow of abundance, whether it's with money or resources or, energy, things like that. The amount of beautiful women that I have connected this year, and sorry, it's been mostly women because those are the people I'm connected with on social media that are, with their online businesses making 6, 7, 8 figures, tapping into that flow of abundance and abundance consciousness. And every one of them that I have met this year is all about doing it together, tapping into that quantum infinite energy flow and understanding that it's all of it. We can't have pieces of us that are separate. If we have parts of us that we're leaving behind, nothing that we build is going to last and be able to support us and the other people too. So there is some really profound movements, shifts, changes that are happening, and they're happening. It's so fun. They're happening in the business world right now, and it's happening with the reintroduction of the divine feminine with the divine masculine energy, which is so exciting, right? It's coming through all of the healing work that we're doing with all of those old concepts. We get to heal on behalf of our own hearts and our children and the ones that are coming before us, but we can do it for those in our ancestry that had these experiences that wounded us, that were all about scarcity, right? That were survival, where there was not enough, right? There was a lot of sacrifice programming that was installed in us too. And I want to just kind of finish with sharing a piece about this abundance consciousness versus the zero-sum game of scarcity and sacrifice instead of like win-win where we can all have enough. A piece that I found in my own body after I had my daughter. I had a hard time taking care of myself and giving myself enough and doing my self-care and everything like that after my daughter was born. I used to be a boss at it, and then it just suddenly became really difficult. And I left when she was about 4 or 5 months old, and I've been, fighting with my husband. He's like, you need to take breaks, you need to do this. And I'm like, oh, I can't leave her. She doesn't take a bottle. I can't go, just telling a lot of stories and not feeling okay with leaving my daughter because I felt like I had to be there every moment for her, that kind of thing. I went to a yoga class. I felt like I could have that hour and a half to myself. And I was like, wow, this feels really good. Why is this so hard for me? Why does it feel like my heart is breaking? Why does it feel like I'm doing something so wrong? And I was in Shavasana, and you're just laying in corpse pose at the end after I'd moved a lot of energy. And suddenly I saw it. I saw the scarcity and sacrifice programming that was running inside of me that had been passed down from my maternal line. And it looked like just kind of like my circulatory system or maybe my nervous system, like all of the branches out that look like tree roots and branches. And it was black. Now, I understood immediately that this was passed upon from mother to daughter, from mother to daughter, and even from the grandmothers, because the grandmothers and mothers that sacrificed themselves for their children had children that lived instead of died. They had children that had enough to reproduce, and then those children would be more predisposed to also sacrifice for their children. And I saw this going back down my maternal line, and I understood why it was so hard for me, because it was activated in me when I had this child that, okay, no matter what, I have to sacrifice everything in me for her. And the underlying sort of assumption that was coming through that was that there wasn't enough for both of us or for all of us. There wasn't enough support. There wasn't going to be enough time, food, like whatever, right? Just that there wasn't enough. And I understood that I get to break that chain, right? That I did not have to pass that along to my child. I too, and let me know if you're one of these two, am a generational, I don't want to say curse breaker, but someone who is here to do the healing work on behalf of both of my parental lines and to shift and change some of those old paradigms, beliefs, heal the traumas, do all of that. It sucks some days. And also it's so rewarding because it shifts me and it ripples back in time to them, and it's going to ripple forward in time through my children if they happen to have kids. So I had to pull that black root system of sacrifice and not enoughness literally out of my body. And I will tell you, it took me about an hour and a half of basically doing psychic surgery on this system that was in me. It was in so deep. I removed it though. And I would like to say that I immediately felt like, there is the abundance and we can move into this new paradigm of consciousness and all that stuff. But no, because even though I didn't have the energetic stuff in my ancestry, I still had the programs in my mind that had been running from our collective consciousness and from, what I was programmed with from my family and what I had existed to have in my mind too about the not enoughness. And so it has been a journey to shift out of that two-folded, like there's not enough, things are limited, and it's all about survival of the fittest and everything like that, and sacrifice into the wait a sec. If we can get into alignment and forget about that idea that we're all separate energetically and just trying to make it on our own, and we can connect to the infinite flow of energy, then we can play in the fields of abundance. There are levels and layers to it, and sometimes it feels like it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back when it comes to the belief systems and the habits and the things like that. And it's also one of the most fun and worthwhile endeavors to play in, to shift those old programs, those old energy in us, those old cords, contracts, ties to what our ancestry has done, right? I'm still working on the one that came through up from like the potato famine, because my body, when it gets calories, it's like, let me hang on to these in case we need them for the next famine. So, I'm not saying that I have done all of the work, but as the shifts into feeling, not just knowing intellectually that we all are connected, but to literally being able to tap in and feel the support that's all around us etherically, like the more that I speak with the etheric allies, all of the beings that, have got our back, and the more that I'm able to tap into my highest self and other aspects of my multidimensional being as well, and pull all of that through into the moment and be like, yeah, we can connect and realize that we don't have to run the energies just through us. I think that's the other really important piece that I haven't touched on. There are real limitations to being in these bodies and these resources. We are limited by time. We do exist inside time currently. People say it's an illusion, but not when you're in these bodies, right? When you zoom out enough to be at that highest self perspective outside of time and space, then sure, you can see all of time at once. We're not existing in that consciousness all of the time right now, right? So we have limits on our time. We have limits on our energy. We have limits to, the resources that are currently available because of how they are distributed and how the energy is moving through them. But when we tap into the all that is and all of the support and learn how to run our energy and work with the earth, work with our highest self, move the energy through our Taurus fields and all of that, we can start to bring through the universal flow of abundant energy instead of running our limited human energy. And that is an additional game changer, right? When we're able to tap into that and we're able to give from that infinite flow and kind of like fill ourselves up at the same time as be able to use it, again, a shift into that abundance consciousness. And that doesn't mean that even if you can tap into that you will never need any need for anything yet, because humanity is just not there yet, right? But there are people that are much closer to not needing sleep and just like living on light and the prana and the energy, right? And as soon as the frequency of the earth is at a space where that becomes more natural, we'll see more of that for people when it's more available. But for now, there's just a few pioneers doing that. So when we're learning to tap into all of this, we have to give ourselves the understanding and the credit for being in these human bodies that are healing from all of this wounding, and be so compassionate with ourselves if we notice ourselves slipping into the limitation. But when we do, when we're going, there's not enough, it's, if I have more, then I feel guilty because someone else is going to have less, like any or all of those old stories, those are because we're feeling like we are separate from the all that is, as opposed to understanding our real connection to it, right? This is a game that we are playing right now, and we are leveling up, right? We're literally learning how to live completely differently. And if you were holding on with me and you were like, yes, I'm here to be an example of this and I'm working on it, or I'm trying, even if you're trying, just know that your intention is one of the hugest things. If your intention is to shift out of that scarcity mindset and into the abundance consciousness, it might take some time. It might take a whole bunch of healing work, repatterning those old programs and trying things out, right? And just getting used to it. So this is a process, but your intention is going to take you further than anything else. The universe is going to put the opportunities for healing, growth, and expansion in your field. Teachers, like opportunities to like heal that old thing that came up through your great-grandfather. Like all of it, it'll be presented to you, and we get to move through it like one layer at a time, because it's very much like an onion. But the paradigm shifting has begun. If you're watching this, you're a part of that. It's so exciting, and I can't wait to dive more into it. So if you haven't already poked into that little 9-minute video that I posted, it would be just below here, or you can search for it on my profile, whether you're looking at this on Facebook, Instagram, or on IG or YouTube. Instagram or IG, both of those infinite places. We go a little bit deeper into the repatterning, some of the old programs, and into the possibility. So highly recommend checking that out, because it was so powerful. I was crying. The energy was profoundly beautiful. And it also sparked our awareness that, hey, this would be really beautiful to share with the public, like I said, instead of keeping it in the playground. So we also have just opened our playground membership doors now until I believe the 27th. So we are open to new members. If you want to experience the abundance consciousness ceremony, the coaching on abundance consciousness, the amazing light language activations that my beautiful friend Rosalind Fung did, who is an abundance activator, did in January, and so much more meditations and dances, and you're wanting to dive more deeply into sacred self-care, this is going to be the place for you. It's a crazy value for what you have in there. It's $33 US a month, and the library is vast with all of these vibrational alignment tools, like just thousands of hours of tools at your disposal 24/7, whatever you're feeling like you need, something to heal, something to clear, something to boost you up. Maybe you're doing amazing and you just want to celebrate that. It's all in there, all of our favorite tools. But in February, we're doing self-love is divine love. And in tomorrow's live, I'm going to speak more into that and like what the heck that means, about how self-care is actually this sacred divine energy. But the playground in February is going to have heart-opening cacao ceremonies, and also beautiful breath of bliss breathwork ceremony, and so many other beautiful things. So I would highly recommend checking that out if you feel like you are ready to shift paradigms and you're ready to take care of yourself and invest in yourself at a deeper level for honestly the most ridiculously low price point I could imagine, because it is a ongoing membership. So that's available. I'm going to throw the link in there in the comments for you to explore that. And I hope that this has inspired possibility, right? Of abundance being a frequency, a mindset, a consciousness, and how it's the paradigm shift we're going through right now, moving us out of separation, fear, sacrifice, and scarcity into that connection, infinite flow, and the abundance of the universal forces of working with all of the energies of creation instead of against them, all of that. So we're doing a lot of seed planting right now, and over the next 10 years, a lot of things are going to be shifting and changing. Buckle up, keep your seatbelt on. It's going to continue to be a wild ride, and I'm so grateful to be with you on this journey. I'm going to go say goodnight to my daughter. Have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, or whenever you are, and I will talk to you tomorrow about how self-care is sacred and probably more important than we are giving it credit at this particular moment in time.